All right, let's start off at the beginning then. So obviously you grew up in Liverpool,
Okay.
and you had a
Yeah,
lot of interestingly named bands when you first started, because you were mates, obviously with Ian
yeah.
McCulloch
It
and
was. It's a
Julian
funny.
Cope and all that mob.
Yeah, yeah,
So tell us
yeah.
about
Well,
your early days before War.
okay. Grew up in Liverpool. Was a very bright, but clearly ADHD. Now I can see kid who, and I was sort of shy and I was kind of chubby, and I'd met McCulloch because we were both fans of Bowie. Bowie was the link initially. His sister Julie, who I knew, she said, "Oh, you've got to meet my brother Ian." And so between 72 and 76, we used to go to like rock gigs or whatever. Always the same because we didn't always like the same things. But he was me, my main mate in those days. And uh, I was a SWAT, like I say, so I did French, Latin, and ancient Greek at A level.
Wow, wow.
I, I got into Liverpool University, but I started university in Liverpool on October the 4th, 1976. That's the Monday.
Right,
The Friday before, October the 1st, Eric's opened. And I
right.
went down with Mac, and Stranglers played for 60p, and we saw these remarkable people. I mean, only 60, 70 people, but still, people I'd never seen the like of. They weren't the usual crowd. And nobody was wearing punk clothes, but nobody wearing trench coats and all that rubbish. So it was interesting from that point of view, and feeling like suddenly from out of nowhere, you belonged somewhere, and it was somewhere you wanted to go again. Didn't know most of these people, and obviously none of them were what they became. But so from the start, it was like, well, I'm going to go to every gig, and I did for a while, to the point where I actually ended up working there during the day, so that I could go every night. And then I met, bit by bit. I went to see the Pistols in November '76, and it was an off night for them. And they've said that since in books and interviews. And it was a miserable Thursday. And the only person who really got involved was the drummer from the Naughty Lumps, Kevin Wilkinson, and he got up and sort of danced. It was a letdown, except just before they played, this figure swept across me in this dingy, smelly basement club, head to toe, head, PVC. And I'd never seen people in PVC of any kind. And it was Pete Burns and Lynn, his missus, his partner, his wife. And I was knocked out. That was the highlight of the Pistol gig, was seeing Pete. And I wasn't sure what to make of him, because people like that, having been a shy kid, I hadn't really seen. I was suspicious of extroverts, shall we say, and then I became one. Because the minute Eric's open, the minute, seeing Pete and seeing these other people and seeing music you loved, I sort of became a different fella, a different person, in a modified version of what I'd been in my teens. But and so university was doomed. I started, realizing it was like a first night. Rodrigo was playing, like maybe Eddie and the Hot Rods, maybe, reggae. He played the Doors, because there weren't any punk records for the first 5 months or something, or 3 months. So just by going, I ended up meeting all these characters, and Paul Rutherford and the Frankies when he was in the Spitfire Boys. I joined them for one afternoon. I joined them because the guitarist they thought needed someone better, and split up the day I joined them. And that was Budgie, who was in the Banshees, as well as Paul Rutherford. So I met Holly. Jane Casey's a vital figure in our gang. But then not until the one I wanted to see, the minute Roger Eagle had an office in the back of Probe Records, and on the back wall, he had this 10x8 of the Clash. And it was just the three of them exploding off it was almost like a paint, those artists who do, what's it called, kinetic art. And it was this one photo, and I've looked at it since, and it's still the most exciting photo. And I thought, I've got to see them. And obviously, they didn't release their record for 6 months after that, 7 months, and they never played Liverpool. We saw everyone. I saw the Ramones, Talking Heads, the Banshees, the Damned a couple of times. I went on stage at the end of the Damned gig and said to Dave Vanian, "Can I have a black bangle?" which he's wearing on the album cover, the first album cover. And I've got that.
Have
and
you?
I don't even know now how I had the weird, yeah, he gave me it. And I don't know how I even had the madness to ask him, you know. And so that gives an indication that I was changing a bit.
Yeah. Have you seen, did you see the Human League when we played there? We played there twice.
Oh, every time the Human League played, I was there.
Right.
Every time, and I even saw the first gig after you left, which was obviously a very different thing. And it wasn't like a gig or what I expected. Because I was a big fan. We were all fans of the Human League. I mean, that's, and I'm not making this up or saying it to you. You know, I went every time you played. Or did you do one show with the tape recorder? Or was that OMD?
Yeah. The first show we ever did. Yeah.
And we loved it. And then, as it went on, being boiled. Will Sargent from the Bunnymen posted being boiled last week on Twitter, and just said raving about it. And I added in also excellent use of the word sericulture because people had sometimes written songs with interesting words in, but it sounded serious. It wasn't done for novelty, like say the Tubes or somebody or Randy Newman would throw in a long unknown word. Sericulture, we all went like dictionaries and all that stuff, and loved it. So I mentioned that to Will last week, how that was such one of those moments. But I saw just about everyone who played Eric's. I don't think I really missed, and especially once it started being, once I was working there or getting let on the guest list because they wanted a little scene. Roger Eagle knew how scenes worked and how you need characters, and you know, you'd be best friends with somebody one week and enemies the next, and then you'd be in a band, then you'd be in a different band, but with the same people. And it was constantly moving, constantly in motion, which I found exciting. And I now reflect on it as it was where all those ADHD freaks went. You know, it's where the weirdos who didn't fit in with everyone else kind of find a place. So even though me and Pete Burns looked, dressed, thought differently, there was an overlap in our attitude and not fitting in things. And so, you know, and I, as I say, I was suspicious of Pete and Lynn because I also had a slight thing being political, and that there was a difference between the likes of me who were political, and I used to call them hairdressers. They were all hairdressers, but so they were ahead of things, you know. So they were really
ahead. I see what you did there. Ahead.
Well,
hairdressers ahead.
I don't even know what
it was. A joke.
It's all reflex. Look, I'm the son of Elvis Presley, and I'll explain that later.
Okay.
If you have time.
Oh, well, you do have
I'll
time.
I'll explain it on Saturday when we're halfway through.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the Clash were the one I was waiting for, and I liked nearly everything that came on. The only time, I mean, there was a band called Racing Cars who I think had won some old grey whistle test competition. And they were on the whistle test. So we went to see them because they were on. And it was sort of all right. I think I even found like a diary not long ago where I'd said they weren't bad. So it wasn't quite the cut and dried, you know, year zero thing for me. Although there was a lot of that. But the Clash. So the 5th of May, 77, which is McCulloch's 18th birthday. And I was going to be down the front no matter what on the stage was, you know, a foot and a half high.
Yeah.
That's about half a meter to the modern kids. I just got to the front to Mick Jones's side. And because when I heard the records, it just blew me mind, you know, it blew me mind. And I still think those early records up to about Complete Control, there's an element of them which is more, I can't, how can you say, not experimental in the sense that perhaps you were, or, you know, loads of other bands we could talk about, but there was something not conventional about them, certainly, and the energy of Complete Control still rocks me. So anyway, I got down the front, and right there, and in fact, injury to my leg just from being so near the front. And then this one other guy's in a green, like a military type boiler suit, and he's kind of rocking back and forth like that, dancing or whatever you want to call, whatever it was. But he was getting it right in me and in my way. And I thought, no one's going to stop me seeing the Clash. and hey, mate, if you don't stop doing that, I'll burst you. And he said, oh, hang on, man. What, instead of doing that, why don't we form a band? And it was Julian. It was the first time I ever clapped eyes on Julian Powell. Yeah. And so after the gig, after the show, we did meet up in the Archways. And the Clash were incredible. The Clash were all I'd hoped for and multiplied by 1,000. You know, the energy was incredible. I know that I'm aware that there was speed involved. I never took drugs in those days. And so I was reborn. And Liverpool, you know, the Manchester thing talks about the Pistols gig. The Clash gig was the Liverpool one. Everyone who was there formed a band at that night.
Really?
And I introduced Julian to Mac, and I said, yes, so let's form a band. And it was, it was the Crucial Three. It was originally, because also, I'm a piss taker. It was Arthur Hostile, because I wanted the worst punk rock name. Like Sid Vicious is a good
Arthur
name.
Hostile.
Johnny Rotten's a good name. Arthur Hostile. It was like, sitcom writer's version of punk. And obviously Arthur Hostile got sacked because we just became the Crucial Three. And we rehearsed in my mum's house. People say, we may have gone to Max once, but it was in my mum's house. My best mate, other best mate from school, Spencer, who I'm still mates with, Steve Spence, was the drummer with knitting needles and an armchair. But we did, all this stuff that never really existed. We wrote 3 or 4 basic songs, but I could sing you them now. In fact, I have sung them at gigs occasionally. There's one, the most, Space Hopper. We had a song which is very different to what Julian put out, because Julian only put Space Hopper out to annoy McCulloch. And, a new song with the same title. And then we had I'm Bloody Sure You're on Dough, which was very kind of Lou Reed, Velvet, shuffly, C to F. I'm bloody sure you're on dough. All I know is I can't cope. And that's what McCulloch's mum used to say to him. And the second verse was, have you been out sniffing glue? Just wait till I get hold of you. And it was really good. And it even had a middle 8 where we just turned the verse backwards. I kind of knew music stuff. So there was, what was the Salamine Shuffle is the other one, which is very like a slow doorsy boom, dum, 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 dum. And Mac's lyric, which is one of my favorite lyrics of all time, was this. No, I still don't know what the Salamine of Salamine Shuffle was, but I think it says, I go walking in the rain when it's raining and I'm having a good time. I go walking in the rain, dum, dum, dum. And then it went, the chorus was, when I get hives, I use calamine. When I want to dance, I do the Salamine Shuffle. It's, and I love it. I love it to this day. And so, yeah, I sometimes do get annoyed at the idea that we were just posers, because there was no even thought of being posers. It was a genuine attempt to form a band, And I think, in retrospect, I'm sick of hearing and reading people who weren't there. People have written entire books about Joy Division without ever seeing them. And seeing them wasn't just seeing them. I don't know how many if you saw them much. But it was an experience. It was an incredible, visceral experience. You weren't just watching a gig. It made you anxious and excited. And I remember the first time when they went from being Warsaw, they played Eric's a couple of times. The first gig was Joy Division. I watched with Mac. So there's the stage over there. And me and Mac are here. And he went, what's it remind you of? And I said, you. I mean, because he was starting, the Bunnymen thing was starting. And it did that kind of dark thing, but much more intense and much more, I related to it massively, and I knew there was something special, as you do. But then you were seeing lots of special things. I saw the Ramones with Talking Heads support.
Yeah, I saw that in Manchester.
Yeah, and
it was amazing.
It was. In fact, there's now a plaque in Matthew Street on the wall where Eric's was, and it mentions that night, and it mentions that I played there, because I played the last night at Eric's as well, when the police came in and raided it, which I loved the fact that I went there not knowing what was going on, and by the end of it, I'd done what punk rock asked us to do, which was go and do it yourself, you know.
Yeah.
So, but in the meantime, I met Budgie, and I was in a band with him. I was in a couple of bands with him. I spoke to him 2 days ago because it was his birthday. Paul and Holly from Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Mac, obviously. I got Mac in the Bunnymen. Will and because we'd had this other band, and Will and Mac didn't talk, and he would say he was shy. He was shyer than me, certainly by then, and I was sort of getting louder. And I think beer came into the equation there as well. But I loved him, you know. Yeah. I loved him, you know. And there've been ructions between us over the years, and that's because I feel like an ex would feel in a way.
Yeah.
And that he's gone a certain place that I don't want to go to. But there's still no need. I mean, last time I saw him was on a train about 5 years ago. We were both going to London, but we got on separate places. And he was asleep. So I went for a pee. And when I was coming back, he was awake. And I just said, I think we went to the same school. And he went, all right, Pete, how are you? And then in that way that, great to see you. Don't sit with me. Don't come, you know, which was a bit odd, you know, a bit odd. And so, but I didn't mind. And now I feel kind of weird about him particularly. Julian got upset with me because of some of the sarcastic stuff that I'd said in press or in books, when in fact it's that thing, especially for a Scouser. I've always thought Sheffield and Liverpool had loads, because one of my best mates became Mal from Cabaret Voltaire.
Oh yeah, Mal's great lad.
He is. He's so nice, and he was like a nice version of me. But I would say the harsh things or the sarcastic things much more than him.
Yeah, but that's a Liverpudlian thing, isn't it, as well?
I think it is.
So it's a bit of a stop. You don't want it to sound too soft, you know. It's like
no, but in fact, you know, being ADHD as well, so very quick to come out with the comments and often inappropriate. I mean, I upset my daughter and her husband on Father's Day accidentally I said a word which I really wish I hadn't said. Anyway.
Please tell us what it is.
No, you can never know. It's been buried in a sarcophagus. Unless it's the title of my next LP. So I got to know all these amazing people, and it was not competitive really. So Will Sargent and Les said to me, they'd been messing around, and he said, you know, what's Mac like? And I said, oh, he's great. I said, he said, is he a good singer? I said, I don't know. He never sang in the rehearsals. So on that recommendation, and I taught him guitar, and I think he says that in one interview on the BBC. I taught him, the basic chords of guitar, because people thought I was the best guitarist in Liverpool. One other person, Bill Drummond, teases me that it was Ian Brodie. But what Ian Brodie could do technically, I could beat him in imagination and power and energy, you know, like Pete Townsend's school of guitar playing to some extent, where, you know, and viewing it as art. And that's the other thing, all of us thought of it as art.
Yes, same in Sheffield.
Yeah. When we saw you, or when we saw The Clash, or whether we saw a reggae band, we knew we were part of a culture and an art that hadn't been around before, with an energy of its own, a momentum of its own. And I nothing could have stopped any of us. But I also think it's, any other era of pop up to then, I wouldn't have stood a chance, because I was too erratic, too ADHD, too inconsistent.
Not erotic then, not erotic.
I am always erotic. Come on, just look.
Read them and weep.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I haven't even got my gold kecks on.
I know, they were good. I've seen them.
I love them.
Just for the podcast listeners, I want to assure you that he is not semi-naked. I was just making that up. But he does actually have some gold.
I can be, for a small fee.
This could be the first podcast we do that's actually that I put out the video for.
Yeah, I think it's vital. We were all meeting, and we were all going to do everything, and we were all going to, and some of us started and then I played Eric's in November 1977 in a band called the Mystery Girls, I wanted to call it the Tesco Mystery Girls, but Pete Burns didn't. It was Julian Cope on bass, and he's one of my favourite bass players I've ever heard, genuinely. And when he stopped playing bass so much, when he got poppy, I was always not disappointed, but I would have liked more of his bass playing. So he was the bass player, I was the guitarist, and Pete Burns was the singer. And we support. So November '77, I was wearing, and I've still got the complete outfit on a hanger. My mother's white coat, match with gold plastic buttons, and a shirt like a floral kind of blouse. Red satin trousers from Bus Stop, like a girl's fashion high street shop. Pair of Doc Martens and a toilet seat.
As you do.
A toilet seat. I put the belt through the hinges of the toilet seat. So I actually wore it where it would go if you were on the toilet.
That's a very good. That's an interesting look. Have you talked to Gok Kwan about it?
That's where I got it. It's Joe Strummer mentions the toilet seat in a song. When Adam and the Ants came to Liverpool, I was wearing it as well, and it was a sort of jokey station because the toilets in Eric's were absolute horror.
Oh yeah,
and unusable. So it was also a little in joke about at least I can use the toilet and you can't. But also it's a kind of Mickey take of all the automatic punks that had started appearing. So, but like Adam and the Ants came, and Jordan was with them, fabulous Jordan, and we all loved her. And but Pete Burns and Lynn especially, and they idolised her. And she came up with Adam and the Ants because she was managing them and sang with them on a song. But anyway, Pete and Lynn got their full Vivienne Westwood finery in, and everything, their full makeup. And I went in the toilet seat, and she went, "Oh, that looks great." And they were kind of gutted because beaten by a bog seat when you're wearing all that. And but
cross-dressing in them days was no big deal, was it? Everybody was messing about.
Yeah, I know, and it didn't even seem a big deal. When I went to see Bowie, the second time I saw Bowie, it was the 10th of June '73 at the Empire when he was doing the costume changes.
Yeah,
I went down in an Al nylon parka, another pair of rubbish shoes, an Al pair of cheap jeans. And when I got down to Liverpool, to Lime Street in Liverpool, where the theatre was, everyone was wearing their mother's bingo clothes. I'd never seen anything like it. I'm thinking they were stupid, then realising I was the only one who looked like a grave digger. Can
I just say? Can I just say that you need to have your own TV show? I will make it happen.
I wanted to.
You should really. I'd pay good money to watch you on telly, but like it'd be like your own personal goggle box. I'd like you to watch shit and pass comment on them. Anyway,
honestly, I can't help when I go and see the specialist about my ADHD thing. The meetings are supposed to last 20 minutes. We're in there for 2 hours, and I'm just Gary Dwyer, the drummer from Teardrop Explodes, used to call me Jimmy Warbuck, which I love. And he mentioned it again last week. I did an interview at one of the, I think it was Rewind North, and the woman said it was the maddest interview she'd ever seen. Put it online, and Gary Dwyer went, "Blimey, Jimmy Warbuck's back."
Jimmy Warbuck, I love that.
I love it. In fact, when there was a point, Ian Brody's brother died, and we went to his funeral. And afterwards, me and Mac, Jane Casey, a couple of other people went into town just to, get together. And Mac was going, "You're really funny." I said, "I've always been funny. You just, haven't been paying attention." And when he said it the third time, I went, I kind of had a little go at him, basically saying, "You've neglected our friendship." And we went out and we had a brilliant time. We didn't get wrecked. Well, we had a beer, but we didn't go into the madness territory.
Yeah.
And then we met up, and I thought, you know what? It's just like the old days. Me and Mac are back in action, and I've often had a private fantasy of me and him in a band with me playing guitar, because I wasn't the singer ever until Heat.
Right.
I wanted to be a guitarist. I loved Mick Ronson. I loved Paul Kossoff. Even I loved. Pete Townsend was the big one for me, because where noise is better than the solo, and feedback. Yeah, that's when I started learning about that. And obviously, when I heard about the Velvets, and I've got a single of "Waiting for the Man." You know what I mean? I'm quite proud of that.
Tell us about your What's your favourite guitar?
Ah, right. I love. Right, there's only one guitar I can tell you in a second, though. I love guitars. When I'm working now, I use Strats because they're not too heavy. I've got a Les Paul signed by Ringo Starr. I did a gig with Ringo, and he liked my voice, and he got me to sing at the end. He got me to sing "Power to the People" instead of him, and I thought, great. And while we were coming off stage, somebody got me Les Paul signed. I had it on top of the pop store and come back. Anyway, Ringo signed it, which sounds great, except no one who wants a Les Paul cares about Ringo. And Beatles fans don't want to pay for the guitar. So it's devalued. It's the only instance of a Beatles autograph reducing the value of something. And also, I won't use it now in case I rub out the ink.
No.
So, yeah,
Well,
but no, my favourite, right, there's only one guitar, which is 78, because as I said, I love the Clash, and I can't remember how, but we got. Oh, I one night, well, Friday night, we're in Eric's. There's a band called Reggae Regular playing, and I've got this ridiculously detailed memory. As you know, I mean, I suppose it must be apparent. Reggae Regular playing is about 30, 40 people. Nothing's happening, and the next thing, the Clash roadie Steve English, or bouncer, he used to work for the Pistols, comes in, goes. And I seen you two at the gigs, and I went, oh God, yeah, all wide-eyed. And the Clash came down, and he said, yeah, we've been in the dressing room, because he used to let people in the dressing room, all the time. Anyway, he said, do you know where we can go for another drink? And there was nowhere late nights in Liverpool or anywhere at 10, 11 o'clock. But we knew of a curry house in Toxteth in Liverpool 8. So we took them there, and we had this fabulous kind of homemade version of curry. Nobody knew they were, because it wasn't that,
Yeah.
And but me and Paul were like that. And after that, we got on every guest list. We could get a lift to the gigs because we could give guest list to a guy we knew who turns out was selling tickets. He was a tout who went to prison eventually. But Mick at one point on the tours. So we went to London for Rude Boy, for when they were filming Rude Boy, just as fans. But Mick and put us up in his flat in Notting Hill.
Nice.
And him and Tony James, so another great guy, Tony. We were sleeping on this floor. Joe came round the second morning, and him and Mick are duetting on a country song. It was all beyond the fantasies of a rock music or a music fan as I am and as I was. So the filming Rude Boy, and it's 4 nights at the I think it became Coco. The music machine in
Camden Palace.
Yeah. And the first afternoon, Mick comes up and goes, Pete, you can play a bit of guitar, can't you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, our roadie hasn't turned up. And this is a whole episode of Murder Most Foul going on about the roadie. But he said, will you roadie for us? And I said, oh my God, of course I will. Anyway, and I still can't tune a guitar on my own. But I wasn't going to knock the opportunity back. But they had this roadie, and Johnny Green, who's another of the legends. He gives me this tuner. It's about that big, but with a stroboscope in it.
Right.
And what you do, you plug in, and you get them all in line, and that's in tune. Great. Saves me all hassle. Except nobody told me that you had to plug the guitar in. So I stood in front of the stroboscope tuning all mixed Joe's, Paul's guitars.
Oh,
so
shit.
It's not getting anywhere, this. Not getting any. And so, God, when people have said, oh, they were always out of tune, I could be responsible for that.
Oh, no.
But, no, honestly, it's joyous, because obviously they could tune up on stage as well. But in Rude Boy, you can see me in Rude Boy. I put a couple of photos up a while ago of it. During Safe European Home in my pink shirt, white jeans, very Mick Jones drag. And, the fact that it was captured on film thrills me. Then, I just had a guitar robbed in Liverpool. The only guitar, it was a Woolworths, an Avon SG. And it was robbed. And I said to Mick, this is bizarre when you think about it. I said to Mick, when you come to Liverpool, will you come and look in guitar shops with me? Because I don't know enough about them. So when the Clash played next, he left the sound check and took us around like Hesse's, Rushworth.
Oh, brilliant.
Honestly. And he's playing in all of them, and he went, Pete, there's nothing here. I've got something better in London. And I went, Mick, I can't afford. you know. Anyway, so we go to London, and these stories amaze me because it must sound like bullshit, or bull, whatever it is. I don't know. You swear on your thing.
You can swear as much as you want, mate. I swear all the fucking time.
Cunt, fuck, cunt.
No, I didn't know you got Tourette's as well.
No, so in the music machine, there was like a little VIP bar up on the side. So the stage is there, and there's a little VIP bar. So I was standing with Mick and Paul. There's a photo of the three of us. I think it's just been in a book. I look fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful, curly, great, a bunch of great quiff. Paul's got dreadlocks because he wanted to be Harry up. And Mick in his, the military hat and all that. And Mick said, Keith Levine walks up, and he was demoing Public Image songs, which before Pill released the stuff. And Mick goes, "Hey, Keith, you still got that guitar?" And he went, "Yeah." He says, "Go and get it." And Keith Levine said, "It's in Camden, in the rehearsal room." He said, "Yeah, go and get it." Keith went away, not very happy, comes back. Mick gives Mick the guitar, and Mick gave it to me and said, "Here, pay me when you're famous." 1959 Gibson Les Paul special.
They are amazing guitars.
Oh,
I mean, I'm a synth guy, but I've got a lot of guitar friends, and I know that's a special. Yeah,
it's amazing, and I'll
with the fortune as well.
Hey?
With a lot of money, probably.
Yeah, but even then it was worth, a couple. I don't know. I really don't know. But it was way out of my league. But the thing, pay me when you're famous. And I always joke that's why I never really got famous, so I didn't have to pay him. And
that's a good title for your autobiography, by the way.
Pay me when you're famous. I've got 403 titles at the moment.
Are you writing it? Have you written it?
I've written lots of it. I think I've thought about doing this version rather than writing it. Telling the stories as well. I went in tandem with it because I like telling stories.
You should do an audiobook version as well.
Yeah. And as well as all these mad stories, I've got serious thoughts about music and serious thoughts about, as I said before, and because I'm always joking, people sometimes think I'm thick when
I don't think so.
No. There are people who mischaracterize me. Anyway, I don't mind. It's their loss. So he gave me this guitar, and I could not believe it. I could not believe, I never thought I'd own a Gibson, never mind. Imagine, I never thought I'd be on tour with The Clash. But Suicide were on that tour as well.
Oh, I love Suicide.
Oh,
fucking great.
We loved in the DJs at Eric's, and I DJ'd at Eric's. We used to love, Rocket USA on the Max's Kansas City compilation.
Yeah. I
also like Knots by Harry Toledo, but no one remembers that.
No, I don't remember that.
No, exactly. You're Harry Toledo. So they were the support band on the tour, and it was astonishing. Right, when I got the Suicide LP, because I worked in Probe as well, Probe Records, as well as supposed to be at university and working at Eric's, Jeff gave me a job just so I had pocket money. And the Suicide LP came in on import, and I grabbed it, and I took it home to a flat about 2-minute walk from here that a bed sitter lived in, and I just left it on, on the old record place where you could have a thing play over and over all night. And the neighbour in the next bed sit came out in the morning, and he looked like Cat Stevens, and he went, "That's a very interesting record you were playing." And he moved out 2 weeks later. So and so then, because I was mates with The Clash backstage, we met Alan. Alan Vega, and he was just the nicest. He always looked unfinished. He always looked like somebody who nearly there, but I'll just leave that. I'm just making Elvis here. Elvis, and so when we played the Eric's on that tour, I think the Specials were on some of them as well. In fact, Sheffield top rank. I'll tell you that in a sec. But when he played Liverpool, we took him out. Me, a guy called Paul Ormby, who was a drummer in like Dogstum or later, and a mate he's not around anymore. We took him round, and he was going, "Yeah, man, I'm going to make a solo album. I'm going to make a solo album." It was like a Suicide album, but without the echo. You talk like that. You talk like that all the time, don't you? Like, do you ever remember a telly series called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home?
Yeah.
The conspiracy guy, the Republican in it, it was a lot like the sound of Alan Vega.
Right.
Yeah, you know, everything. So it felt exciting, even when he said, you know, you got a cup of tea. You know, it sounded fantastic. And so I didn't even have a phone. My mum didn't even have a phone. But Alan Vega was going, I didn't know that drugs made people talk positively about every situation. And hey man, I'm going to make a solo album. I want you to play on it. And I said, oh, my mate Paul's here. I want Paul to play on it. So basically, half of Liverpool was playing on Alan Vega's solo album that he hadn't even got round to thinking about. But believe it, and I had to give him the Probe Records phone number because I didn't have a phone. And I used to come in every other day and say to Jeff, has he rung yet? I was waiting for the call, genuinely naively. And anyway, on that tour, they were incredible because they were not like the Clash, but they had, you know, they were more terrifying, more exciting in lots of ways, more confrontational, certainly. Whereas the Clash by then had a fan following, you know.
Yeah.
Suicide had the opposite. They were, you know, there was a night, it might have been in London, where someone threw a bottle and it hit Alan Vega and his head started bleeding and he picked it up and he started hitting himself. Like, anything you can do to me, I can do 10 times worse. And it was remarkable. I mean, and he never, you know, he was often out of time, but it didn't seem to matter. It was, you know, it was almost, you know, when you have two tapes like that, the Steve Reich experiment, and one starts going out slightly. And he was a bit like that at times. Like he was listening to a different track. But honestly, stunning every time. And so I saw them about 30 times on that tour alone. And I think the first gig that we went to on that tour, where we got to know Mick and Joe better, was Sheffield Top Rank. And we've been told, everyone was saying, Susie and the Banshees are going to use it as a warm-up for their next thing. And we were going, oh, great, we get to see Susie as well. And then we got in, and somebody, I think they had an announcer or something. He said, oh, the Banshees can't make it tonight. Instead, we've got this group from Coventry, and it was the Specials.
Oh, and
wow. And out of nowhere, you know, so 78, I think it was they just stopped being the Coventry Automatics. I've talked to them since about it, and they were fantastic. You know, they were genuinely fantastic.
We did 2 tours with Susie and the Banshees. That was fun.
Oh, I love,
yeah, they were nice people.
I mean, they really. I've still talked to Steve Severin, you know, and as I say, I mentioned I talked to Budgie. Sue loved me, and I've never quite worked out why. You know, I remember we were at a Reading festival once, and you know, in the free bit, the posh bit. She booted me up the ass and I was chucked, you know, like, Sue's recognised me. All right, Wylie, what's going on? So, you know, I also had the best ecstasy I ever had after an album launch of theirs, but that's a coincidental another story.
Right, okay.
I'll tell you
was that when ecstasy first came into the country?
Late 85, 86, 87 it must have been.
And so
after it must have been 86-ish, because the first time I ever took it, a girl I was seeing said, oh, there's this thing, you know, do you want half each? And so we had it, and it was some kind of press launch, you know, blah de blah, all them people in London who the ones that don't miss, basically. And I felt great, and I felt angry because here's me feeling wonderful, and I'm surrounded by knobheads. So there was another place across the road, the YMCA on Tottenham Court Road.
I know it.
And there's a thing on there, and I walked in, and Mal was in there, and the Cocteau Twins, and suddenly the ecstasy worked. It was, you know, and we had, you know.
I remember. I just got to interrupt you for a second because I've got a funny story. I used to go to this thing called the Wag Club in Soho. It was very famous.
Me too.
Chris Sullivan, you used to go there, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And one day I went in there, and it's when ecstasy had first come into the country, and Bob Elms, you know Bob Elms?
Yeah, of course,
He was there, and I remember going into the little side bar bit, and everybody was crawling over each other like worms in a bucket. And I said, what the fuck's going on here? They said, "Oh, it's this new drug," and everybody just wanted to. Everyone was gurning, and everybody was wanting to just touch each other. And I thought that was very funny.
Well, funny enough, that best ecstasy after the Banshees do was in the WAG, but it was not. The Banshees had the album launch early, like tea time, and we were drinking champagne and tequila, and
don't do it,
we went out. Hey,
don't do it, kids.
No, unless it's free. And then, and which is the worst thing, the worst word in the world to me is free, because I'm greedy. So I was hammered with them and went up the wagon. There was a lad there who I still talk to, and he said, do you want any pills? And I said, oh, I've had all this drink, it won't work. And he gave me a pill, and I had a major psychedelic experience.
Really?
Not like acid, but I mean, again, I could do an hour of stand-up just about the next hour. One moment comes back to mind. So I'm in the WAG going, how the hell has that happened after being boozed all day? And as I'm doing, I thought, I'm going to go, to the dance floor, which is not something I'd done before ecstasy. I used to ask girls if they'd like to come for a stand. And
Jimmy Warbuck, thank you.
Yeah.
Here all week.
But no. So I'm walking towards the DJ, and as I'm the head of Virgin, who I was signed to at the time, was walking towards me, and like that. And as he waved from the left, hexagons formed in my vision, but building one over hexagon until my whole vision. And I just managed. I said, I'll see you in a minute. I went and sat on the floor next to the DJ box, and these two lovely fellas were going, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm having a major psychedelic experience." And he went, "You're not going to be sick, are you?" and it was. And so I bought 10. I thought, this is something I can never, it's the greatest thing I've ever had. And none of them ever worked the same.
No,
none of them. It was.
There's a documentary on Netflix, I think it is, called Fantastic Fungi. And it's all about. It sounds like a daft, kind of title, but it's actually a very interesting and serious documentary about the use of psychedelic drugs for different psychotic conditions and depression and stuff. You've got to watch it. It's amazing.
I will. In fact, I've looked into this loads. I've even asked my doctor, about microdosing. Because if it works, and it's clearly even ketamine, which I've never done.
No, ketamine's horrible, man. Don't want to go
right. But that's now being used, and it gets rid almost instantly of depression, which is something, because most of the drugs they give you for depression, the ones I've had,
I have to say, from somebody spiked me once and gave me ketamine instead of cocaine.
Oh,
and I ended up with my trousers around my ankles at home, and my wife who was 7 months pregnant at the time, going, "Just you fucking wait, just you wait till you get till." And I was trying to speak, and I couldn't. I was going. It was all going on in my head, fine. I just couldn't actually talk. And
I've heard all kind. Is there a K-hole or something?
It's horrible, mate.
Yeah.
So the only reason I mention it is to people who listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
I strongly dissuade you from taking ketamine. It's a horrible drug.
Absolutely. In fact, there's not much you can take these days. Well, I don't know. I'll do my best.
Yeah, but I mean,
just having a swig of drink.
The purity of the drugs is always in question. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, there was a recent series on Sky called Liverpool Narcos, about 3 episodes. One about heroin in the 80s, which a lot of us still believe was brought in deliberately by the Tories. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm the opposite. But there's evidence that was, they did it in America as well.
It doesn't surprise me at all, no.
And then how that went from, people just being, out of it and poor and in bad health to the beginnings of ecstasy. And the documentary, it made me angry, because they were saying, basically, this is what happened. This is how great it was. And then we decided we could make more money by cutting it or whatever. And it's infuriating. It's gangsterism, because drugs are illegal, when alcohol is
I lost 2 friends to heroin, so
right, yeah,
I will never. I mean, I never touched heroin ever,
no, no,
and
me,
for that reason, and it's the most evil drug, I think.
yeah, it's a horrible thing, and I've talked to Pete Townsend about it, because I got to know Pete Townsend because I'm a massive fan, and eventually I got to meet him, and I'd written a song. Right, there was a thing on Radio 4 where they got in artists to reflect what was happening in the news, and it was live. So we had to go in, and they had a story about there was a guy in Iraq or Iran who was persuading people not to plant poppies, i.e. opium, and getting them to plant pomegranates, which sounds ludicrous, but apparently it was working. I've never heard of them since. So I came up with the title, which is obvious, really, because, pin, when you eat a pomegranate, you used to get a pin. And
that's right. Yeah.
So pins and needles.
Oh, I say.
I know. And I wrote a couple of songs, not based on personal experience, except of being around people who did it. Yeah. And when I was at uni, I remember there was a student who was like 10 years older, which at the time seemed ancient.
Yeah.
And one Saturday afternoon, she said, "Oh, come round to the flat." And, meet my fella Roy and his mate Kevin. And they like playing, jamming guitar. And I still find that a bit odd. But anyway, we went round, and they were kind of glassy-eyed, but I didn't know. I really naive. I thought, I went to the toilet for the pee, and I said, I came back, I went, "Oh, I don't know if you know, there's some kind of weird red spray on the wall, and it was, they'd been shooting up in blood, but I had no idea. And it's always been some, I'm not interested. Somebody once told me that if I shouldn't do it because if I did it, I might like it. And that's the danger,
This is the problem with heroin, because the first time you do it, it makes you sick, but also it's like it takes away a lot of
all your worries are gone.
But then you have to have more. So that's anyway. Let's move on to something else a bit more cheerful.
Quickly. So Pete Townsend, when I eventually met him, he said that song "Pins and Needles" was great, and he said when I was on my heroin jag, and I was like, he's comparing something I'd written to his own experience, which for me was a massive medal,
Right. The when I interviewed Tony Visconti for the podcast, and I read his autobiography, and he was an heroin addict from 18 to 21.
Right, yeah.
And he came out the other end.
Yeah. Not many do,
People do. Anyway, so we haven't really.
I went to the studio about 84 after Come Back was a hit, and we wanted another. Beggars Bank was saying we've got to have another single, and I didn't think in those terms. Even though I love singles, but I hadn't thought I was moving somewhere else by then in my head. And so we went to Visconti. He had Good Earth, was it, in Soho?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it was just when he got very, very clean. He says, and so the studio was no smoking, no nothing. And he said, "Yeah, I think I can save this track." And I just said, I said I don't want to work with him because I don't want that attitude that he's doing us a favor, even though he might be, and he might be a genius, Well, anyway, yeah.
Anyway, that's that. So, just want to because we're getting close to the end. We've hardly started. We'll have to have part 2 later in the year, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
But
so I got to ask it out quickly because Sinful, we did a 12-inch mix which was. It still gets played now in Ibiza. The 12-inch, the tribal mix of Sinful was getting played in raves, and one of my mates said, "They're playing your record in this, these new clubs." And I was wearing all my biker leather jeans, and someone said, "Come down, Paul. There's a guy called Paul Openfold's got a club underneath Heaven, little dingy place." And I went, and I just didn't get it because I was in my black leather, and there's all these kids in big white t-shirts. I just get it. Then the Strobe came on, and I got it. And then I kind of still didn't get the music quite, the very, But I already had a 303 that I've used on some of, even on Sinful, but you can't hear it because when it got mixed, they decided it was too gimmicky or something. Anyway, then they played Sinful and the Strobe's on, and I got it, and I kind of realized it's only the same kind of repetition and noise as the Velvets. You know, in a way, there's a relationship between that. I mean, I love repetition. I always have. My records haven't always reflected that, but you know, I got it completely. And I've been a fan of Tangerine Dream.
All right.
When it was very uncool. I went to see them in '75 on my own at the Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool, and it was astonishing because, firstly, they had those massive synths which are longer than all these walls.
Right.
And you know, it's in a beautiful cathedral, and that kind of repetitive
it's hypnotic, yeah.
Oh, totally. And the little lights going on. I think I fell asleep for like a split second because and it was wonderful. But I found out a couple of years later when I got to know Paul Rutherford from the Frankies that he was there as well, and I liked that fact, you know. And I could see elements of that as well in the acid house stuff, obviously. And I've always loved that kind of, you know, I'd always loved talking electronic music. Just because I was a guitar head. Like Simple was an attempt to do a guitar-based electronic record. Deliberately, I wrote down, I want to do a cross between The Clash, Sylvester, Phil Spector, and someone else. And in a way, Simple sort of did
I think he did. I think he does it, actually, yeah.
And in the middle, I wanted to fill a glass section. But I obviously haven't got, you know, this is 85 when we were recording it, 86 maybe. But I loved Philip Glass when I...
me too.
Yeah, so I started, and I found out because of the technology, because I loved the technology from day one. Before I had hits, the technology was a part of it. And so I did the Philip Glass section. And then about a year later, 87, we signed to Virgin in America. And a woman there, Nancy, who'd been in a band who were on Nuggets. You know, the
Nuggets, yeah.
I'll remember.
I had that.
So she's talking to me, and she was my A&R link or something. And she says, "Oh, by the way, I love the Philip Glass section in your record." And I said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "Philip loves it too." And I remember, and he said, "He's going to sue your ass." And I said, "Yeah." But her husband, she was married to his producer, Kate Moncassi or Concassi. Anyway, and it was a little joke, but Philip Glass had heard it, and I was thrilled, you know.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so, because I never wanted to I never wanted to be just Bruce Springsteen or just Jim Morrison or just Joe Strummer. To me, there was always loads of music coming in. And
exactly.
in the, I'm going to say
I've never personally cared about genres. I mean,
no.
To me, it's either got soul in the broadest sense of the word, or it doesn't. And absolutely. I'm not interested in manufactured stuff that's just to make money. I'm interested in the artistic soul.
Exceptional. You know,
like, give me an example.
Kylie Can't Get You Out of My Head.
Yeah, that's a great song, though.
Yeah.
That's different. But a lot of that kind of PWL stuff was just formulaic.
No. I've always hated it. But see, I hated that even when I was a kid, before I'd read music press and understood that thinking. I remember there were records, because I love music from... It was my savior. I came from a happy house, and pop music was it saved me. A world that I could immerse myself in and be absolutely learn all the facts. I knew all the facts. I knew all the lyrics. I knew everything. And I remember, I've changed my mind since, but I remember when Close to You by the Carpenters came out, I hated it because it was too shiny and bright. And now I love it. Now I love about 10 Carpenters records.
Oh, Carpenters are great. Yeah,
totally. And the story's amazing as well, you know. Yeah. But I had the thing of going. I remember I even said, I met Steve Lamacq about like 7 years ago for an interview for the radio, and he said, somebody mentioned the Carpenters, and I said, "Oh, they were the first band I ever hated." And he went, "Oh, yeah." I went, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, first band you ever hated." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Why do you think they were cool?" He said, "Oh, no, I've never heard anyone think like that." And it didn't occur to me that other people didn't necessarily think like I do. It's only, again, recently that I understand that more now because of the ADHD. However, I've never been ashamed of going back on things I've said in the past. If I was wrong, I want to know, you know, from the...
And we all change all the time anyway, you know. So.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, imagine.
Yeah, of course, we're dynamic systems, Pete, you know.
Yeah, I love it.
Right, smash hits. What's your favourite film?
Favorite film is 2001: A Space Odyssey. There are 3 posters from it over there. She hates this. My daughter was conceived after watching it at Christmas 1988.
Oh, so she's like the little baby at the end.
She's a star child, but she hates the fact, and she hates the fact that I even had sex to have her, you know.
Oh, I have to tell you that I interviewed Jonathan Barnbrook, who did the artwork for the last 4 Bowie albums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's such a talented guy. I asked him that question this morning, and he said 2001: A Space Odyssey. Isn't that weird?
It is, and it bears, for me, it bears repeated watching.
Oh, definitely.
You know, and I came to Bradford to the Museum of Film and TV to watch it there in CinemaScope.
Oh, yeah, in 70mm, yeah.
The curly screen.
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. All right, better favourite book?
Favourite?
Book.
Oh, now, is it? No, it's not The Catcher in the Rye. Is it Watchmen by Alan Moore?
Interesting. Yeah, I had that as well.
Honestly, I reread it last year, and I got a different thing. When I finished reading it in '86, I think, I was in a record company flat in West Hampstead because we were recording the Simple album, and I had a mate called Nick Fry who used to do the Café de Paris the Wednesday nights.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Nick was great. Anyway, so West Hampstead is about 3 or 4 miles from Soho. I finished reading Watchmen, and I walked from West Hampstead to his flat, and I knocked on his door, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I didn't even know how I got there." I'd just been my head was so blown by it that I just walked to Soho going, you know, I mean, honestly, it still does it to me. And, I'm a big fan of Alan Moore, and two of his daughters live in Liverpool, quite near me. He comes up.
Oh, right. Okay. Favorite TV show, past, present, box set, anything you want. I don't care.
Sopranos, but it's Emerson, Lake and Palmer compared to The Wire.
Yeah, it's true.
I love it. And then watching The Wire later, I was struck by how they cut to the bone, you know. And I want to watch them both again. Outer Limits always.
Outer Limits, man.
Yeah, I love.
I was terrified by the radio monster. Remember that?
Oh God, I've got things that you could. I remember because I used to end up watching them when I was 5 or 6 because of the nature of the house, of the family. They couldn't put me to bed, and now again ADHD. But there are episodes I can remember watching and squirming when somebody mentions it, and I watch them now, and they still do it. Yeah. And the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's brain.
Yeah, brilliant.
Compassion and love for humanity, but in a dark
way.
So they and there's a moral. I mean, all the things I love have a certain moral value because morals are important to me.
Exactly.
And I've made mistakes, but I've also done my best to be a decent human being.
You are a decent human being. And,
thank you. Thanks.
We thank the world for that.
Thank you.
Epiphanal moment, like a thing that.
5th of May 77, The Clash. Absolutely.
Right.
Although 72, December the 28th, Manchester Hard Rock, David Bowie whipped off his shirt and said, "I'd like to introduce you to the Genie," and it stayed. I shiver as I say it.
Wow.
And in fact, Ian McCulloch still sometimes comes up to me if I see him, and he leans in and goes, "Why didn't you take me to the Hard Rock in Manchester?"
Oh.
He's still gutted that I saw him first.
Oh,
so they're both pivotal.
Brilliant. Which is your favourite musical artist or composer?
Oh, all of them. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I've had obsessions with all kinds. Bowie was always the inspiration.
Yeah.
And I even felt betrayed. And Black Star, to me, was the greatest record he made.
Absolutely.
Love it enormously. And the ideas and the sound and he at ease with himself, but also knowing that what we didn't know. The Who mean a lot to me, Townsend particularly. But at the moment, for the last 2 months, Joni Mitchell I've become obsessed with. Absolutely obsessed. I've always liked her. I've known lots of her songs. I've seen David Crosby raving about it and other people raving about it. I never quite got that. And now I've just fallen madly in love to the point where I have to listen all the time and every day. And A Case of You, I keep thinking I'm going to get bored with it. And I won't, I don't. I find new things, even though it seems simple.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell,
Brilliant. A lot of people feel similarly about Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, I do like Dua Lipa, but only with the sound off.
Very good. Jimmy Warbuck. Ambition unfulfilled. If you've had any ambitions,
what
would you like to do?
Two, astronaut.
Right.
But I haven't forgotten that yet. And to have a successful career.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to have that one day too. Visual artist.
Well,
or conceptual.
Basquiat. Herring. I love the New York guys. Warhol is the big one, though.
Yeah, of course. For everybody of our age, I think.
Yeah, but when Basquiat, I didn't get Basquiat at first, and then I've got a fake Basquiat in the room there, like 3 meters wide, because something happened. I think I got it, and then I watched a documentary, and I was like, blown. I love loads of visual art. I love loads of stuff,
Yeah. Which of your own work are you most happy with in retrospect?
You know what? I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, but The Story of the Blues, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, it's got to be.
When it's still getting played on the radio, which is I could not have predicted. None of us can we?
No.
When we have a moment like that. I can listen to it now with a little bit of distance. And in fact, I've just been re-examining it because I've done a deal for my catalogue with Chrysalis.
Right. Oh, good.
And so The Story of the Blues is going to be probably the first track that we do work on. So I've been listening back and I've been playing with the track even. And there are things going on that I know exactly how I did it. I know what the influences were, conscious and unconscious. We used some, when we were making it, we were Mike Hedges in Playground Studios in Camden. And I decided that we ought to try other things as well as, the mechanics of making records is one thing. But I used some of the Eno cards,
I've got some of those as well.
Yeah.
What's it called? Oblique Strategies.
Strategies, yeah. And we got a medium in. And we got a medium in because I wanted John
Couldn't you
Lennon
get a large?
Hey?
Couldn't you get a large?
It'd be a 2XL now. She came in and she said, well, I can't promise you John Lennon because that's what I wanted. So what would he do with, and it wasn't, obviously it was, I didn't believe in it and all that stuff, but it was a thought experiment almost. What would John, because it affected me, what would John Lennon do here and what would, and I've always referred to all of those, that my heroes, they're all behind me, watching me and telling me that's rubbish, that's great or whatever. Sometimes they're wrong as well. But she didn't like Carl Washington, the bass player, and so we carried on without her. But it's funny, the re-examining thing. So The Story of the Blues cost 6 months to record on and off.
Wow.
Because and now I could record it in 6 hours with GarageBand, and it would sound great, It's remarkable how all those processes are. It's almost GarageBand was made for punk rock.
Yeah.
For people like us who didn't know. And I my love of, I bought a few more synths. I bought there's a kids one came out on not GoFundMe, the American version, crowd thing anyway.
Yeah.
And it's made for kids. And I thought, well, that's great because I won't have to learn all the stuff. And I played with it one afternoon, just making amazing noises and sounds and rhythms. And I still haven't read the instructions.
I don't think I've ever read an instruction for anything.
Exactly. But because, again, the ADHD thing of not following processes. So I had a mini Moog on Moog, and we tried to experiment with it. And because whereas a guitar, I could get instant. I do sometimes like that instant thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it with a mini Moog, and it took almost like you had to learn how to and what things meant. And some people it was more natural for, but it wasn't for me at the time.
Right.
Now it's much easier. But later on, we had to change studios recording Sinful, and we found out in Fulham in Lily Yard.
I've been there. Yeah.
With Tangerine Dream had the big synth at the back.
Yeah.
So we thought, right, I want to use more synths on the stuff, and we got after about 3 weeks, me and Bill Drummond, Jimmy Corty, the KLF guys. After 3 weeks of hard work and attempts, we got this. And that was the only sound we could get out of it. So it was disappointing.
You should have rung me up, mate. I'd have given you a hand.
Now I know.
Send for Batman. Yeah, you'd.
Well,
speaking of which, the final.
Genius.
Pioneer. Synth. Your favourite synth, then?
My favourite synth is. It's here. This kid's one I've just got. I'll tell you something that shocked me. I remember I never really knew Howard Jones, for example. And I was talking to him because I was fascinated by synths. I read Pete Wylie, who's the managers, got me to read in about 1981 2 books by Alvin Toffler. One was called Future Shock and the other was called Third Wave. And it was about the future. He's a futurist, the first time I heard that term, really. And about the excitement of machines. And I dived into using machines. Like on the Story of the Blues, I think I said, I learned to program a Lindrum to make that record because I was determined to use machines and stuff. The demo had string synths, but it was never right, so we ended up getting in violin players. But I love a TR. I had a TR-808 before that. I was trying to use that, and I did one Peel session with the TR-808, and Peel said, "Well, hopefully, Pete will get back to doing music soon." But I still love an 808.
Me too. Yeah.
The synth.
Where is it?
It's here somewhere. Hang on. It's the crowdfunding one because the colours are great, the lights flash, and now, I mean, with everything. This is the nature of another aspect of ADHD. Is I've lost my phone 7 times without leaving my chair, and I'm not exaggerating. Hang on a sec. Where have you gone? That's ridiculous. That is. Hang on. No.
No, it's gone.
My life is challenged.
Well,
I can't remember what it's called, but it's great. But actually, it's using the GarageBand as taking all that hard work out of that as well as recording.
Yeah.
So I just split through different synth sounds, and I love them. And my favorite synth is the one that has an arpeggiator. Yeah. I love arpeggiators.
Fine. Well, on that bombshell.
Boom.
Part 1 of Jimmy Warbuck and Marty Warty Ware.
Marty Ware.
Marty Ware.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. Jimmy Warbuck and Marty Ware. We could be the new Chuckle Brothers.
Come on.
There's a gap in the market. All right, man. Listen. It's been an absolute pleasure, and
it's lovely. One of the
you do know you're not getting paid by the word, by the way.
I don't want to. I do everything for nothing, and you know that. But I've said to people, one of my favourite things about doing these festivals has been seeing you and meeting you. And
that's very nice.
Genuinely, nice. And I'm really grateful that we've been able to.
Well, I'm grateful too because. Jack Gray's been talking about you for years, and we've never really connected, and now we've done it.
Right? Yeah. Jack's been a goodie, but
he's a good man. Listen, we'll definitely do part 2, either later this year or early in the new year. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks. Have a great day,
Thanks
mate.
a lot, Martin. Love you.
All right.
All the best.
See you soon. Bye.
See you soon.